It had been a busy morning. Orbie found out that if you leave your marbles in your gumboots, they tickle your toes when you put them on. Katie discovered that trying to find a sun hat in the costume box can be a little tricky. And they both learned that sometimes 5 minutes feels like an hour. Katie and Orbie were in a hurry because today they were going to visit Micah on his farm. He said he was going to show them everything. When they turned in the long driveway, Micah and his mom were waiting. Mom and Dad and Micah's mom all went over to the garden chairs and enjoyed a cool drink. The three little friends took off at top speed for the barn. Spirit was sound asleep when they walked in. This was his bedroom. Micah told them they had to be quiet. Orbie wondered how Spirit could be asleep when he was standing up. Micah told him that that's how horses sometimes did it. Orbie thought that was great. There was hay all over the floor in case Spirit wanted to lie down. Spirit turned his head and looked at the three friends. Orbie thought he might be angry at them for making too much noise, but he just nuzzled Micah's tummy. He giggled. Katie wanted to pat Spirit. Micah showed her how to pat his soft nose. It felt like velvet. Then Micah had an idea, and he reached into a little barrel full of apples. He showed Katie and Orbie how to hold their hands very flat to give the horse a treat. Horses just love apples. Katie tried it, but Spirit's nose tickled her hand, and she had to drop the apple. Micah picked it up, and Orbie tried it. It was wet and goobery, but fun. Next, they found a little family of kittens that lived in the barn. They were climbing on the ropes and playing in the hay. Katie thought Chance would love to live in this farm, too. Nell the cow was outside in the field behind the fence. Micah took Katie and Orbie out to find her. Nell looked at them and kept chewing and chewing. Micah told his friends that cows like to chew. Orbie liked the big black polka dots on the cow, and he wondered if the cow liked his pink ones. Nell didn't say anything. Micah showed his friends how to feed the cow. They picked up long grass, and Nell just took it from their hands. Katie tried it, but when Nell's great big head got close to her hand, she dropped the grass. Orbie picked it up and gave it to Nell. When Nell took it, Orbie tooted his excitement. That was when he got a big surprise. Nell mooed loudly right back at him. It surprised Orbie so much that he fell right over. Micah and Katie helped him up. Orbie thought Nell had a terrific moo. Next, they went to the pen where the geese were kept. Micah told them that geese were nice to look at, but they didn't have very good manners. It wasn't a good idea to feed them. Orbie didn't hear him because he had his head stuck through the fence and was holding out some grass. All of a sudden, one of the geese turned and ran towards Orbie. Orbie thought that was great. But when Micah realized what Orbie was doing, he pulled Orbie out through the fence and shouted at the goose to get away. Katie was a little bit nervous. Micah told Orbie that the goose would bite him by accident, and it was better just to look at them rather than feed him. Katie hugged Orbie. She hugged Micah, too, for saving Orbie from a goose bite. Some things on the farm are fun to look at, but can be a bit dangerous, just like some things at home. Next, they came to Clarence the pig. Katie loved his flat little nose. Orbie wondered why he wanted to roll in the mud. Micah said he liked to be dirty. He made kind of a snorkeling sound. Orbie imitated it. And Clarence looked at Orbie. Orbie snorkeled again. Clarence gave a grunt and went right back to his mud. Clarence liked corn on the cob. Micah asked Katie if she wanted to feed the pig. Katie looked at Clarence's dirty face and snorkely nose and thought, maybe not. Orbie wanted to, for sure, if Clarence wouldn't bite. Micah told them that actually pigs were very clever, and very friendly, and a little dirty. Orbie held out the corn cob, and Clarence pulled himself out of the mud and trotted over. He made a snorkeling sound, which Orbie was sure meant thank you. Micah agreed. Then Katie saw a whole bunch of chickens. They were busy clucking and pecking the earth. When Orbie ran over to see them, 5 of them jumped up in the air and flew a few feet away. Orbie felt terrible that he had scared them. Micah smiled at his friend. "Chickens just do that," he said. Then he held up his hand. He said that it was always a good rule to be a bit quiet and walk slowly when you're around animals. Orbie nodded his head. He would remember that. Micah asked his friends if they wanted to feed the chickens. Katie took one look at the beak of the chickens and shook her head. Micah picked up the pan and filled it with grain from another barrel. He told Katie that these animals might be the best ones for her to feed because all she had to do was sprinkle the grain on the ground. The chickens did the rest. Micah threw a few grains on the ground near the chickens. All the chickens clucked and raced for the grain. Their heads bobbed up and down. This was certainly the best animal to feed at Micah's farm. Katie took the pan and threw handfuls of grain on the ground. The chickens hurried over to the food. Katie chuckled. As she walked around, a whole bunch of chickens trailed behind, eating the grain she was throwing. Just then, Micah's mom appeared with Spirit. She wondered if anyone would like to ride on his back. Katie was a bit nervous, but when she saw Orbie and Micah up there, she thought maybe she could do it too. Micah told her he would hold her tight, and that's exactly what he did. They walked around the whole farm and had a wonderful time. When it was time to get down, Katie gave Spirit a hug. Then she gave Micah a big hug for sharing his farm and all of his wonderful animals with her. Orbie thanked him too. Katie said she thought the animals were very lucky to have a farmer as terrific as Micah. And do you know what? I think they really were.
Did you know? No. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know?
Elephants threw dust all over themselves to keep little bugs off and help them stay clean. You can bet that if you threw dust all over yourself, your clothes would end up in the washing machine.